I want to talk to you about writing the level 2 critique for Marionettes Inc. Now, I call it the level 2 critique because it's a little more complicated than the first critique we worked with, which only has one type of summary. Here, you can see that there are two types of summary. Now, I know that it might be hard to see the words on the video. Maybe you can expand it a little bit to full screen and still be able to see the words, but I'll read all the words to you. But I wanted to give you a visual representation. I like to think of the essays I'm asking you to write, the short nonfiction, short pieces, essays, um, as a box, a long rectangle. And then we can just divide it up as we see fit, because I do want you to think of your writing as sections. Obviously it's one essay, or another good way. I think a good way to think about it here is a magazine article. This article that you're writing, and it's got sections to it. All right, so if that's the very first way to divide that big piece up. But then each section can be further divided into paragraphs. And I do want you to have a plan for how many sections you need, and I'll share that with you. I think that this is a pretty good basic, formula to get started with this. If you've never written this type of thing before, then I encourage you to use this. This isn't the only way to write it, but it's a good formula. It's a good template. And in this case, the level 2 critique, which is also called the interpretation paper, all right, or it's sometimes maybe called a response paper, but you're dealing with, say, a fiction, a novel or a play or a movie or a song even, or a poem, or perhaps a work of art, a painting or a sculpture. What you're being asked to do in that case is to talk about the thing, describe it to your reader, and then to evaluate it or to respond to it, to share your opinions to it. But that thing itself is going to have two layers to it. It's going to have what I call the literal layer, which is the surface layer, the thing that you see right away, and then it's going to have a figurative layer to it. The meaning behind it, the deeper meaning behind it, the message it was meant to convey in some way. Sometimes the message is subtle and simple. Sometimes it's more complicated and layered. But that would be that's what characterizes a level 2 critique. See, both critiques, the level 1 critique and the level 2 critique, are trying to, are essay forms in which you share your thoughts about something. And because I think it's always a good rule of thumb for you to pretend or to imagine that whoever is going to read your essay does not know that something, has not read that poem, has not read that, doesn't know that concept you're responding up to, uh, or hasn't seen that movie, or hasn't seen that art piece, or hasn't read that short story. And let's also assume that they never are going to do it. While they're reading your work, they're not going to take a 30-minute timeout or 2-hour timeout and watch that movie. Okay, so if you are, for example, writing a summary about a newspaper article, newspaper articles are very literal in the sense that they just mean to convey messages on one level. I mean, it's a very, what you see is what you get operation, isn't it? And you don't necessarily have to go looking for a deeper meaning there, right? So if you're writing a response to a news article, then you basically would summarize the news article and then respond to it, or present your evaluation. But what if you're going to write your response on a movie or a short story like this? Well, it's more complicated. Your summary is actually, there are two parts to it, or we can even view it as two summaries that you have to deal with up front first, because remember, your reader of your essay is not going to, let's just assume that they haven't already read this short story. Now, I know I've read it, right? And if you're just writing to me, then you're letting your writing stay within the schoolroom walls. Okay, I don't want you to view this as a school assignment. Of course it is, but I want you to pretend that you're actually trying to write it for a magazine, And the person who's going to pick up that magazine and look through it or look through it online, they have no clue that you're a student. They have no clue this is a school assignment, and they let's just assume again that they haven't read this short story. So I'll tell you right now, the language I don't want to see in your essay is something like, for this assignment, you see what I'm saying? Or this essay that was assigned in class, or for the title, this title will never work. The critique assignment, you see what I'm saying? The interpretation paper. Well, be more creative there. And again, don't use any language that lets your reader realize that you're writing for a school assignment, okay? And up here, I would like a two-tier title. You see I have the main title, and then I have a colon and a subtitle. And I'll let you try to figure that one out, right? As far as what to put up there, right? I think somewhere in there you need to let your reader know that you're working with Ray Bradbury's Marionettes, Inc., right? And then you probably should include some words or some phrasings in your subtitle, or maybe even your main title, that hints towards what you think about it and what were some of the main themes, okay? And trying to convey that hint with just a few words, because your title can't be 3 lines long. That's a skill in itself. So I would encourage you to spend some time on that and really try to make a good title. But for this essay that I'm asking you to write about Marionettes, Inc., the short story from Ray Bradbury, you're going to need to provide, the very first thing that you need to do is provide a literal summary of it. In other words, just explain the story to me, okay? Pretend I've never read it. And it might help if you sit down with a friend who actually hasn't read it, right? And then just try to verbally explain the story to them. And maybe take notes while you go, because you'll figure this out. I mean, as you try to explain the story, you'll know intuitively where you need to start, what sort of details you should bring in, what sort of details you should exclude, that sort of thing, right? But obviously the summary has to be much shorter than the original, So that's your first section. I think it's logical to just say it goes up top, right? And how many, if you want to think in terms of paragraphs of that summary, I think 2 to 4. It's a short story, but it still has some length to it. And I think if you try to get it all into one paragraph, your paragraph might get a little long, or I think 2 to 3 to 4 paragraphs would be fine. Okay. Now the second section, okay, is still a summary, but it's the figurative summary. And this is why I call this a level 2 critique, because the summary part is a little more complicated, right? It has two different types of summaries than the level 1 critique. And by the way, a quick little aside here, I want you to know that this level 1, critique title or label, and level 2, those are my labels. I don't know if other English teachers will ever refer to this sort of critique this way. This is usually referred to as the interpretation critique, or a literary analysis. Now, I don't like that phrase, because I'm using literal here to mean that surface level, right? But because the interpretation essay often happens in works of literature, right? That's why it's sometimes called the literary analysis. But interpretation essay, whereas the level 1 critique that just deals with something that has only one layer of meaning to it, like that newspaper article that I used in an example. That's often just referred to as a critique, or an evaluation paper. All right. Well, anyway, here you need that second section to be your figurative summary. In other words, I want you to tell me what the meaning is. What was the message that was behind the characters and the plot, right? What is Bradbury really trying to say? If that helps you see what I'm trying to get at, right? It's like, what is he really trying to say here, right? And I want you to make a guess, a good guess at that. And you don't have to tell me that it's your opinion, or you don't know, or, well, that's okay. Be confident about it and try to just go ahead and have a go at this, and see if you can come up with a message that you think the story actually does support. All right. Now the third part of this. Oh, by the way, that summary section, I think it would be fine if it were 1 paragraph or 2 at the most, because It doesn't have to be as extended as the literal summary. The literal, you're trying to tell the story, in an abbreviated form. But here, sometimes the message can be just one sentence, right? I would like a little bit more than that. But if there's one core message there, you don't need 3 paragraphs necessarily, especially for a short story of this length. So this figurative story, excuse me, summary, I think can be a little shorter, right? Maybe 1 or 2 paragraphs. By the way, that P there is the paragraph symbol, and when you have more than one, you just double them. It's double P, double paragraph symbol there. There's actually a name for it, but I forgot it. So there you have it. At least I'm not making it up. But anyway, double 3 to 6 paragraphs. Here would be your evaluation. Okay. Now look, this is the defining element of your paper. That's why we don't call this paper a summary paper, right? This is the heartbeat of this assignment. So textually, it should be more than the other two, right? This should be at least 50% of your paper, if not more. All right. So many times I'll get an essay and it's top heavy. This is a lot, and the evaluation is only one short paragraph. And I think, well, I know I want it to be expanded more. 3 to 6 paragraphs. If you're thinking in terms of paragraphs, and I give you a spread because some of you might be able to do it in 2, some need 4. I mean, it's up to you. Those aren't you don't have to lock into a certain paragraph number. You know what I mean? And I think these are within reason. If we had 20 paragraphs on here, you're giving me a short thesis or something. I don't want a 15-page report on this. So, all right. Now the evaluation is where you come up with your thoughts, your reflections, and I want them to kind of please try to focus on the meaning of the story. I don't necessarily want all of the evaluation to be about how you responded subjectively to the story. Some of you might have really liked it. Some of you not so much. Some of you, Ray Bradbury's style was great. Some, it was turgid. It was hard to get through. It wasn't that great of an experience. So, I don't want a lot of your evaluation to be about how you personally responded to the experience of reading the story, whether you liked it or not, whether you thought it was funny or not, or interesting or not, or whatever. I would rather you focus on your thoughts about the values and beliefs and ideas that were expressed in the story. All right. So now I have some more words here. I know they may be hard to see in the video, but when you're summarizing, I want you to be in the they say mode, in the sense of this is what Bradbury says. This is what he writes his story. And you can also, of course, mention the name of the characters. If you're Brayling and Smith, are taking a walk and that sort of thing. Now, I would really like very quickly, excuse me, at the very top of this, I want you to get to it fast. I want you to tell your reader, who wrote the story, what was the story's name, that sort of thing. So something like it could be something like this. Ray Bradbury, in his short story, Marionettes, Inc., presents us with 2 characters, Brayling and Smith, who are taking a walk and discussing their marriage, period. All right. And then just take it from there. But see, right away, from the very beginning, I've given my reader the full name of the author and the full name of the short story. Now, I'm going to try to write it out down here. I hope you can see it. I'm going to do this because I want everyone to get this right. Okay. What do you do with a title of a short story? You don't italicize it. You don't bold it. You don't put it in larger font than the rest of your essay. You simply just enclose it in quotation marks. Okay, so it should be comma INC period. Okay. Now that's not the end of the sentence. That's part of the title, right? The ink carries a period on it. You should check me on that, by the way. Go to the title and see if it's there. If it's not, then don't put the period. But the comma needs to be there, and the capital M, capital I, and then all of the open quotation marks here, double tick. It means two lines, closing quotation marks, and that's how the name of the short story should appear in your title if you have it in your title, and anywhere else. Okay, so that's just a little thing, right? I mean, if you make mistakes there, does that mean that your deeper thoughts are off, or that you're not worthy of a writer? Of course not. Of course not. But these are signals that you're sending to your evaluator, to your editor, to your teacher, whatever. That you know, it's marks of professionalism. And if you get everything right from on the surface level and the substance level, you will be, that's a huge plus on your part, as far as getting your work read and accepted and respected, right? Um, so I do want you to focus, on getting all the nitty gritty right as well. That's how you do it. Okay, now let's talk a little bit. Oh, by the way, the evaluation. Okay, I was saying in the summary, both the literal and the figurative. That's where you mention. That's where you can keep your opinions out of that, right? You're just trying to represent what Bradbury was saying first in the story, and then what you think his message was. And you have to imagine that he's actually sitting there listening to you, and then at the end of your summaries, you could turn to him and say, Bradbury, did I get this right? Is that what you were saying? And he should be able to say, yeah, that's basically what I was saying. So it's all about what he was thinking, what he was trying to write, what he was trying to say. It's not your opinion yet. Your opinion comes down here. Your thoughts come down here, right? So this is the I think space, right? And I do definitely want to have you use the first person pronoun. Put the I in there, the me, the my, the mine. Go for it, okay? And in fact, I would love for this whole section to start off with a signal to your reader that lets them know that this is now moving into your thoughts about this. And something like, after reading this story, I had a few thoughts about what Bradbury was really saying. Right there, I had a few thoughts. Right, that tells your reader that you're coming in with your own opinions now. All right, you can. My concern is my belief. I'm thinking this. Okay. All right. So that's the basic three sections template that I want you to kind of work with. All right. And again, remember that you have paragraphs to put in there. Please don't just give me one paragraph here, one paragraph here, one paragraph here. I think as I said before, this top part here, the literal summary, could be 2 to 4 paragraphs. This one right here could probably be one, maybe two. That's why I have it there. And then this third part, I would say 3 to 6, right? Paragraphs. Okay, let's talk a little bit about what the message might be, and then what you can write about in your evaluation. Um, Obviously the story is from a male perspective. I don't know if you should make much of that or not, but what are some shared characteristics here, and what's really going on? Both are in marriages that are maybe 5 to 10 to 15 years long, and both are overwhelmed with their marriage. Okay, now see, I know the story focuses on marriage, but I think we can expand it a little more generally to say a very intimate core human relationship. Maybe the fundamental relationship, right? Uh, the family. And I know there are no children involved here, but of course children come from parents, and here you have two married couples, and both are having issues, right? And Brayling is saying, well, my wife is just so domineering. She wants all my attention, and I want some time to myself. So and then Smith, right, is listening to this and says, I too have problems. My apparently this last month or the last 2 months, my wife has kicked it into another high gear in terms of physical affection, right? She's hugging me too much. She's kissing me too much. She's always calling me and asking if I love her, telling me she loves me, and in fact, she's hurting me. She's hugging me so hard, she's bruising my ribs and hurting my lips because of the kissing. And so one is frustrated because of the physical element. You see the physical side here, and the deeper social issue at play in Brayling's marriage. Both these men are struggling, right? And to solve the problem, what do they turn to? Now again, Bradbury's pushing all of this way into the future, and we're not there yet. I think we'll be there soon enough, faster than we may think. But we're not, in our culture today, we're not actually having life-size humanoids solve our problems. But if we can generalize it a little bit, both of these men respond to advanced technology, machines, computerized programming, instruments. highly advanced technical instruments that are fine in the mechanical world, but these men have brought them into the relationship or the social world to mediate, right? Both of these men want to put the robot between them and their other, and so they want these devices to mediate and try to alleviate, which means to kind of soften or make better, if you will, the issues that have existed between the two human parties, right? But as these devices are placed in between, um, there there seems to just spring up almost organically deception, deception. Because now what these men have done is they've interjected a a space between them and their other, and in that space they have machines now, devices that can put on, uh, can use appearance to mediate, right, versus reality, right? Because they're not these, Brayling number two, the robot that's upstairs falling in love with Brayling's wife. Um, he certainly looks like Brayling. So there's appearance there and there's deception because he's not the real human. Okay. And for both of these men, so see, I'm trying to generalize what I know is just happening there, right? Is that you have social relationship, core foundational social relationships that are in trouble, that are full of tension. And one party, one human decides to bring in a technological device, a machine or whatever, an instrument, a computerized gizmo or whatever, to use to intermediate, to put between himself and the other, the troubling wife. And all of a sudden, it's not as if they planned it, but there is deception that pops up because those machines are bringing in a plane, if you will, of appearance, or an element of appearance versus reality, right? And so, in other words, the machines can do things that are trying to trick the other partner into calming down, quieting down, uh, getting the tension out, right? But it's based on false appearances or on deception. And it's not as if Grayling or Smith, who planned to buy these robots, had this all figured out. It just kind of just happened. And then these both of these men are then at the end in a disadvantaged position, right? It backfires on them, in other words, and there is even more harm that is brought into the you know the situation. In fact, Brayling loses his life, and Smith, realizes his wife has tricked him before he could trick her. And in fact, one of the reasons that he's suffering so much from a broken rib and a bruised lip is that, in fact, the wife bought her robot first. Figured this out, and Smith has been living with this robotic wife for a while, and apparently she's on the wrong setting, super strong or whatever. Well, the point is, deep issues between um, humans in a relationship that should be preserved for humans. Okay. By the way, a little time out here. If you're in a class with me and we've read Program for Love before this, you see I've tried to tie these in together because this is really what Shirley Temple was saying. Yes, Shirley Turkle was saying. All right. Um, Now, you don't have to bring this into this essay, but I couldn't resist trying to show you how there's a little bit of intertextuality happening here that I designed in the course, um, to help you think about these issues. And if you want to write a research paper on something like this, you're welcome to, because I feel like there's going to be a lot of material, a lot of way to focus on something specific. And you may as well start thinking heavily about this, because this is really going to be at play with your generation and your children's generation. So anyway, back to the task at hand here. Um, you know, Trying to solve a human problem with an artificial intelligence machine, or a non-human device that looks like a human isn't going to do it. It's going to backfire. Okay. And I think that that's the message. That could be it. You might see other things. You could come up with maybe some different messages, but I think this was really there. And of course, you're welcome to use this in explaining and talking about this to you. I'm trying to use all of this to help you think more deeply about the paper. And yes, I expect to see that in your paper. You don't have to come up with a new message just because I'm using this in the video. Now down here, what are you going to talk about here, right? Are you going to agree with him? Are you going to disagree? Well, it's going to be hard to disagree with him completely, right? And you don't want to agree with him completely because then you might have trouble developing the substance here, right? You can't just say, yes, I agree with everything he says, because you're not going to have much to write. How do you get legitimate length here, legitimate substance? Well, let's complicate it a little bit, right? I mean, I think he has a point, but is it really just that simple? For example, there are a lot of men, one type of these human problems is just um, issues between other people that affect us so much that we have a lot of psychological damage, a lot of emotional damage in us because we've been through a traumatic relationship, a toxic relationship. And someone might say, well, you need to talk to a counselor, that can help you. And perhaps, but there are a good number of people that really are very hesitant to do that because they're embarrassed or they're flummoxed because, you know, why would it, why would I want to share my deepest fears or my problems with another human being that can then turn around and use that information against me? Or maybe the cost is prohibitive, right? Or maybe there's a sense that people are afraid of going to a therapist or a counselor because they don't know how to control the whole thing, right? Because the therapist might say, well, I need to see you every week for 2 years. The person's like, I don't have the time or the money, especially the money to do that. So, but then the therapist might say, well, you don't want to get better or something. What's the matter with you? Of course you need to do it. I'm the authority. I'm telling you. And I know more than just a few people that would really not appreciate that mindset at all, right? But what if you had a really smart artificial intelligence program that could ask you the right questions, and you could pick the right voice that really, and the avatar that you felt you could respond to, and you know in your heart, right, that this is a computer program, and it can never judge you the way another human being can judge you. Yet it can ask you the questions, and you can talk, and it can respond to you, and and uh, and I feel like that is maybe a place where, you know a humanoid, if you will, or a virtual humanoid, right? An avatar, an AI program that's responsive, can really, maybe it can help some people, right? I'm thinking of the movie Her with Joaquin Phoenix, and that's basically what the movie was all about, right? So maybe it's not, oh, it's always bad. Maybe it's like, it depends. Sometimes it's bad, sometimes it's not so bad. To have a device mediating in a human to human relationship. Or now you can also mention this in your evaluation. But here's something else I want you to consider too. If Bradbury is saying, look, there are some areas where really the machine has no place in this area. Just another human. It's a human sanctuary, if you will. It's roped off for just the human, and machines can never do a good job here. They never should be let in terms of this relationship or this activity. And this idea goes way back to Aristotle. Okay, I'm not going to bring a lot in here, but I just want you to know that it's a very old Western idea that the human being is a utterly and essential social being, and we need other human beings. We need to be around them. Maybe not living 10 feet from them. Sometimes people like a crowded room, but other people, they like more space. They would rather live in the country than the city. But I guarantee you that they also need people. Who wants to live alone on the far side of the moon? You need friends, you need family, you need people to talk to, you need people to see on the streets, you need to have a nice small interaction as you pay for your meal or as you buy something at the grocery store and you say hi to someone and you're kind to someone, you look them in the eye and you thank them for it, or you ask them a question, even something as small as that. Your life is full of that. And I don't think we can actually imagine what it would be if we erased all of those completely. We need those. We need other humans around us. And some might say, well, I don't. What? But yes, you do. It's just maybe you don't need it as much as someone else, but you still need it. And I feel that it could be a valid approach for you, or tangent, if you will. I wouldn't necessarily call it padding or fakery. That's too strong of a word. You know how filler. I wouldn't call it filler if you wanted to spend some time here saying, Bradbury brought up a good point about the sanctified, you know, space, humans only, if you will. In this room, or in this relationship, in this job. And I'll challenge you at this. What do you think the jobs are in the future that only humans can do? Right? And when I say job, it's because you're doing this job in the service of another human, or whether directly or indirectly, right? But only humans can do that. In other words, the human on the other side of the counter, or on the other side of the end of the process, would walk away if they knew a machine were doing it, you know, behind the screen, if you will, or if they didn't really believe that on the other end of the phone was an actual human being, they would hang up because they wanted a human being. So to what extent, for example, can advanced robotics, or computers, or advanced artificial intelligence, to what extent can they really help diagnose disease, scan the body, et cetera, et cetera? To what extent can they truly help in the medical process? But then at what point does the patient say, I'm really sick, and I just want to talk to another human being. I don't want to talk to a computer. I don't want to just be in this device that's scanning me. I want someone to touch me. I want someone to talk to me. I want someone that I believe is a human being who knows the human condition. Okay. See, I think that's it. I think that if we run with the idea of the human condition, then the machine cannot ever truly understand that. And we are never truly going to believe that the machine understands that. Okay. So what is the human condition? Unfortunately, well, it has a lot to do with joy and happiness and love, but it also has to do with grief and sadness and suffering and loss. And as we age, hopefully many of us learn how to deal better with these issues. But these issues are what deepen us, right? And they are what make you human. And the machine, I don't think, can ever truly experience that. Now we can bring something up to the high level of appearance where it looks like they're appearing and experiencing all that, but I think that's the key right there, right? That's something to focus on, is to what extent does the human condition provide for us that space where only humans can be. Now, if you were looking ahead in terms of your own jobs, what you are going to do in life, when, especially now in our age, artificial intelligence seems to be growing at leaps and bounds, and well, I think if you want to have a really good shot at this, and at getting a decent career and a decent activity out of life, you think you might need to really spend some time thinking, what are the jobs, what are the activities that only humans can do, because other humans will pay money for this, but they'll pay only if another human is doing it. What are those jobs? And I think that those jobs are going to be in high demand, I think, in the next decade or two. But that's something that you could talk about here, and it's not that great of a tangent or a digression at all, because that's really you're anchoring stuff to the core meaning of the story, right? But you're riffing, if you will. You're expanding it. You're taking it in new directions. and that would be a great place to do that in your evaluation. So again, remember, everything I've said in here you can put in your paper. Okay, use this as practice. I guarantee you, in the rest of your college career, you'll have another chance to write an interpretation paper, and maybe this will help you. Yeah, I know this video went a bit long, and I want to thank you for watching, and I really do hope that this has helped you with the assignment.